Thank you, everyone, to tonight's Board of Aldermen meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to tonight's January 19th Board of Aldermen meeting. We will begin with minutes of the previous meeting, January 4th, 2021. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that has been seconded to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Is discussion changes these minutes? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion that has been seconded to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries. We are on to outside the rail. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the board on items not on the agenda? Hearing none, we will move right along to communications from the mayor. Mayor Allaire.
Yes, good evening. I just have the one item that's on your agenda tonight, and that is to ask you to remove from the table the nomination of Jim Rotondo for interim DPW commissioner, and then take a vote.
I'll move to remove from the table.
Second.
We have a motion and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion or debate to untable this? None, so we have a motion and it has been seconded to remove from the table the nomination of James Rotondo for Commissioner of Public Works. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
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 And those opposed? Motion carries.
So.
All right.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, do we vote now by that email or link, I guess is a term, that the city attorney sent us?
Yes. So for the members of the board, you should have received an email at approximately 3:45 today from Attorney Bloomer. It will say no reply at adoodle.org. Please just log into that, place your vote, and once everyone's in, we'll tally that up and we'll go from there.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I only see one link. So I don't have the voting link. I have the link, if I click on it, it creates a draft email. I don't have the second link.
It's at the bottom.
Attorney Bloomer, I would ask you real quick.
Are you looking at your Comcast account, Sharon? I think that was the one I sent. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it says you'll receive one email with two links, but I simply only have that one email. When I click on the link, I just start an email.
Huh.
So my apologies. If you could send me another, I'll do the vote quickly.
I'll try. I don't know whether it'll let me resend, but let me.
I have no problem doing a voice vote, Mr. Chairman, if that's easier. And you can tabulate the other aldermen.
Alderman Clifford, I see you have a question.
Yes, I just was curious if it would be more convenient if you can't get on to vote by the chat link here. Can you do that or no?
Well, I don't mind voting. I don't mind voting in open. I don't mind voting yay or nay if that's easier, and then it can be counted with the rest of you.
It's also right now it's a 9-0 with 2 that have not voted. So there's enough either way to confirm.
I will vote yes, and I know that Alderman Gillum is having difficulty logging on.
Okay.
All right. So Attorney Bloomer, by my count, that is 10 in favor, none against, with one vote absent. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Alderman Caruso?
Probably being one of the oldest ones, I didn't want to mess up being online and being with my email, so I used my phone. That's how I voted. So I don't know if it helps you, Sharon, but I voted yes on the phone, so. But thank you.
Sam.
And
Appreciate it.
congratulations to the commissioner.
Thank you, Alderman Caruso. All right,
Thank
so
you.
it sounds here we have a vote 10 in favor, none against, one absent, which would confirm Jim Rotondo as the Commissioner of Public Works. Congratulations, Mr. Rotondo.
Well, thank you very much, and I want to thank the board members and the mayor for your trust in me, and I look forward to working with you all.
Go get him.
Thank you very
Thank you.
All right, we're still under communications from the mayor. Mayor, do you have anything else for the board?
No, I do not. I'm all set. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions from the board for the mayor? Hearing, seeing none, we will move on to additions and deletions to the agenda. You should have all received this afternoon this paperwork related to the Rutland Free Clinic, which I would request that we add to miscellaneous motions, resolutions, and new business prior to the resolution that we will be taking up tonight.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion that has been seconded to add the Rutland County Free Clinic to the agenda. Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? All right. We are on to reports and letters from department heads and officials. Up first, we have Brennan Duffy, RRA Director, Better Places Resolutions. This is pages 1 and 2 of your packet.
Thanks, Matt, and good evening to everyone. So as you see in your board packet here, we have an opportunity to go after a grant through a new program that's funded by the Vermont Community Foundation and the Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development that has been designed to increase the vitality of the state's downtowns and village centers. We have an opportunity to apply for a maximum of $20,000 through this grant. There is no matching funds required, although we will probably have some in-kind match that we will include in our application for labor and effort. And what we're looking at for this opportunity is to repopulate the Center Street block. As you all know, last summer we had a successful pilot project there, and we put that all together very quickly at the beginning of the summer so that it could be utilized. So we learned a lot of things from that process, and we think we can do some things better. We think we can, after using this, we have some ideas for some better materials for some of those parklet decks that the restaurants were operating on. So we would be seeking this funding to repopulate that for 2021, and to do that better. We're all, I know, hoping that this summer we will see some lifting of the COVID mandates and gathering restrictions. So that could be an even better and more vital area for the city, and we look forward to that. So this is, again, a funding opportunity with no local match to allow the city to apply for this grant. They look like they will be reviewing these in early February, and applicants will be notified February 15th, I believe, if they have been awarded. So we'll know pretty quickly if we were successful here. And I guess what we're looking for tonight is just an authorization for the board president to sign the resolution in support of this and assure that the city has site control over the area, which we do. It's all going to be within the city right of way on Center Street. So happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Brennan. Alderwoman Davis.
I have no questions. I'll just move to suspend the rules.
Second.
We have a motion to suspend the rules, and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those
Motion,
opposed?
motion to authorize the president of the board to sign on behalf of the city, the Better Places grant.
Second.
We have a motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion or debate on the issue?
That's where my question is. Does, Brendan, do you have any idea how much this will be for? I didn't happen to see a dollar amount. If you don't know, it's a free throw.
No, we're actually, the application's due Thursday. We're still putting kind of the final touches on that for the budget. The maximum we can apply for is 20,000, and my guess is we will be close to that, but probably not coming in right at that number.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Is there any other discussion or debate on this? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion that has been seconded to authorize the board president to sign the attached resolution on behalf of the Better Places Resolution Grant. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye.
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 And those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brennan.
Thank you very much.
All right, up next, we have Treasurer Markowski, Treasurer's Report, and this was emailed to all of us. Treasurer Markowski.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. This is the report that I sent is the second quarter, December 31, although my notes say September, it is December quarter. Because it's the quarterly report, it includes all of the funds, not just the general fund and the proprietary funds. So I'll just go over quickly some of the highlights here. I am going to point out that the cash balance, pooled cash balance, end of December, about 2.4 million. I did a little check. We're carrying a bit less cash than we had last year. At same period, we had 3.8 million. And that's really, you know, when we get into the looking at the pooled cash report, the sewer fund is having a negative balance just because of the projects that are going on and getting reimbursed from the state. So our cash balance is a bit lower than in the prior year. Also wanted to point out the delinquency report is attached. We're having a little bit of progress on delinquent taxes. I mean, it's a tough time right now, collection-wise, with, you know, in the winter, the holidays, the heating, you know, you don't see as much payments on delinquencies. But I did want to point out that the state was part of the Vermont COVID, the city participated in the COVID-19 arrearage assistance program, so we were able to help on past due utility bills during the COVID period. Homeowners were able to apply through the state website. The city received roughly $27,000, and that helped 58 different utility accounts. So that was a good program to participate in, and helped a few. You know, I'm sure there were more out there. I think the program at this point has run out of funds. So we did that through end of November, early December. I think there was a 3-week window for that grant program. I included some summary detail of where we are expense-wise and revenue-wise in the general fund. The expenses, we're looking at really following where we had adjusted for the tax rate. We had adjusted our budget a bit. We're right at 50%. It's really important that we stay right on target for the end of the year to realize the savings that we had projected, the $800,000 that we weren't going to spend. So we're on target right now, but with the knowledge that not all expenses are equal over the 12-month period. So we'll continue to watch that, you know, on a quarterly, and particularly when we get to the end of the year. on a positive note, the non-tax revenues, rec revenues, RME, at 67% of what we had projected. So that was a good number to see. I'm just going to skip down to the water fund, sewer fund, pretty much on target for revenue and expense for 6 months in. Parking fund revenues they're just down. There's not a lot of activity. The revenues are down in that fund at 33% for the first 6 months. RRA is really remains flat at 50% of expenses. I know the board monitors that really closely. The executive director really keeps the expenses in line. A couple of notes in our department. The audit for FY20 is near complete with drafts issued, so I have to review those and respond back to the auditors. I'm really working with muni billing, having a few reconciliation issues with the water and sewer. So working with the company, we have moved from working with a conversion team to an operations team for that. So we have a different group of people that we're meeting. We meet with the group weekly teleconference. So just wanted to point that out. This report we'll post on the website. We post the quarterly financial reports. I would ask to have this report referred to Finance Committee for a closer review, more detailed review of the finances.
Alderman Attari.
Thanks. I'll make a motion to refer to Finance Committee.
Second.
Second, yeah.
I also have a question, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead, Alderman Davis.
So Mary, and I know we've talked about this before, so it's just kind of a reminder that at some point when you're able, that the board receives the deficit spending that takes us out through, I don't know, year X, so we can see what's out there for bonds, when they're going to retire, that type of thing.
Okay, can I add that for review at our Finance Committee, and I'll have that ready for review then? That I would plan to do that because I think I have it pretty much together for all of the proprietary funds and the general fund. So yeah, that would be a good time to look at it.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Attari.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask, the arrearage program, was that something that you had to apply for, Mary, or something that they came to you with, or how did that work?
That was something that Jeff Wenberg worked on as commissioner, that the city had to sign up for. And so we signed up and then just worked through the state program. So all towns, all municipalities were able to apply for those funds. It was a first come, first served basis too.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Treasurer Markowski? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion. It's been seconded to refer this to the Finance Committee. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Treasurer Markowski.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next on your agenda, we have Attorney Bloomer's executive session regarding litigation. We'll, of course, move that to the end of the meeting. So that leads us to reports of standing committees. We have up Alderwoman Humphrey, General Committee, Business Process Improvement, RFP. This was emailed. Alderwoman Humphrey.
Thank you. General Committee met on January 14th at 5:30 for an agenda item being the discussion of a business process improvement RFP. Committee members present were Chair Melinda Humphrey, Vice Chair Paul Clifford, Sam Grusso, and Rebecca Mattis. Others present were Mayor Allaire, Judy Frazier, Attorney Matt Bloomer, Board Chair Matt Whitcomb, and Alderman Chris Torrey, Sharon Davis, Bill Gillum, Michael Talbot, and Lisa Ryan. Also Gordon Druscillo of the Rutland Herald. The committee met to discuss the business process improvement RFP sent out by Mayor O'Leary's office in December with proposals to be received by December 30th. The mayor's office received 13 responses, more than, I'm sorry, is there an echo or somebody else talking?
Oh, sorry, that's me.
Thanks, Sharon. And described them as responses to a request for qualifications more so than an RFP. Many were from out of state or too large or too expensive, and so that's how the mayor's office whittled down the list. The mayor described the intended work as streamlining processes and improving communication across the workforce to include all departments and unions. He would like to start with the water meter billing processes and also suggested workers' comp claims and parking ticket appeals as future processes to look at. The top 3 vendors determined by locality, cost, and type of work proposed to the BOA were Regeneration out of Brattleboro, CGR out of Rochester, New York, and ALG out of Montpelier. Alderman Grusso asked what it is that we're paying for and suggested that the people in the department know the problems and also the fix. Judy Frazier indicated that each vendor consistently outlines the following 3 pieces: process mapping through interviews, collaboratively rethink the process, and then facilitate a transition plan. Attorney Bloomer noted that because these vendors are for services and not goods, the charter only requires the Board of Aldermen to approve the vendors as having appropriate qualifications. The Board of Aldermen is not being asked to approve funds, only vendors in this case. The funds would be from existing budgets, for example, professional services lines or mayor's contingency funds. The Board of Aldermen approval is not needed on an individual project unless requesting additional funds. Alderman Attore noted if we had a list of processes or an approximated total of time or money budgeted for such projects, we may have gotten proposals from vendors with more specific qualifications for the process we needed help with. He also suggested we consider if the expense is worth the efficiency. In response to Alderman Attore, Attorney Bloomer said that we did receive questions from the vendors asking what type of project we were thinking of. He's compiled that list and circulated the responses to the board, I believe, today or yesterday. He also said that there may be some skill sets existing at City Hall that are suited for this type of work in the HR department, DPW, or others, and that they would like to be involved to the extent they may be available. In regards to is the expense worth it, it depends on the project, and he noted that $10,000 for parking ticket appeals fix is probably not worth it. Alderwoman Mattis asked what requires that the Board of Aldermen approve these vendors. It seems like we don't always have to go through this process. The mayor explained that specialized services require asking the Board of Aldermen for approval, send the RFP, and then approve vendors, and also reminded the committee that the Board of Finance has a list of approved vendors that are signed off on each year. The current task is similar, though these are new vendors and not on the existing list. Alderwoman Mattis moved to recommend to the full Board of Aldermen that the 3 vendors, Regeneration, CGR, and ALG, are approved as presented. The motion passed in committee 3-1 with Alderman Grusso being the no vote. Meeting adjourned at 6:22 p.m. and I so move. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion that has been seconded. Is there any discussion or debate on this issue? Alderman Attore.
Thank you. As I said when this idea was brought up and at the committee meeting, and now the mayor has a right to do this. So I'm going to support the motion. I want to have a conversation about the RFP, but the questions that Attorney Bloomer sent around kind of go to my questions that I had. So again, I think the mayor has every right to do this kind of work. So I will support the motion as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Attore. Alderman Grusso.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members, fellow members, I wouldn't know Jim Rotondo if I bumped into him on Merchants Row. I've never met the man before. I voted yes for him tonight. An acquaintance of mine told me that the day we had that meeting, he was meeting with the water department. I can't tell you a day that's gone by that the 6-month, I was going to call it something, but it was dirty, ingenious idea of our water system overhaul that was going to take 6 months. It's gone on for 4.5 years, been nothing but a mess and an albatross, and it's cost a lot of money to the city and to the customers. A day doesn't go by where somebody doesn't complain to me that they're getting $400 bills and $1,000 bills, and like Mr. Winberg tried to tell me that my consumption was up, and then he sent me a letter of apology the next day that my consumption's not up, my bills are up. But anyway, Mr. Rotondo had been meeting with the staff the day we had that meeting to get to the bottom of the problems, and that's what I was talking about. It's all you got to do. It's something that the former commissioner didn't do, and I take my hat off, and I proudly voted yes for him tonight. As he went down and he talked to his people. These are the guys that are in the basements of these houses working on these meters and dealing with this technology. They know what the problem is, not some outside bunch of guys with PhDs in the end of their name. And that's why we're wasting city money, in my opinion. And I've been in business for 30-something years, and it doesn't take a doctor or a doctorate to come in and figure out what a plumbing problem is when we have professionals here doing it. So that's why I'm voting no again tonight, because there was a lousy example of how we're going to fix our mess in the water department. I think Mr. Rotondo is going to fix it, and I think his people are, and he's got a heck of a staff there that are going to tackle this problem. And ladies and gentlemen of the city, this will be fixed. I know it will be, because we got the right people working on this finally. So thank you, and I will be voting no again. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Garuso. Alderwoman Humphrey.
Thank you, Chair Whitcomb. So I am in support of this motion, as I mentioned before. I just want to reiterate we're voting to approve vendors rather than funds that are already existing in department head budgets or the mayor's contingency fund. And I would just make a suggestion that perhaps in the next department head meeting, have a brainstorming session and have the department heads maybe come up with their top 3 suggestions for processes to consider for something like this, and just take a straw man poll if anyone's actively considering this at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderwoman Humphrey. Is there any further discussion or debate, questions regarding this issue? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion that has been seconded to recommend the 3 vendors, Regeneration, CGR, and ALG, as presented. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
I said no. My mic was off. No.
Thank you, Alderman Garuso. Motion passes 9-1, with Alderman Garuso being the dissenting vote. Thank you, everyone. All right, so we are on to reports of select committees, of which we have none. Reports of representatives, of which we have none. Petitions, letters, miscellaneous communication, we have nothing. We are on to the Board of Control Commissioners. I would entertain a motion to go into the Board of Control Commissioners.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that's been seconded to enter the Board of Control Commissioners. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are in the Board of Control Commissioners, and we have a second-class liquor license, Shami Quick Stop, pages 3 through 7 of your packet.
I'll move to authorize the clerk to sign on our behalf.
Second.
All right, we have a motion seconded to authorize Clerk Heck to sign the liquor license on our behalf. Is there any discussion or debate on this issue? Alderwoman Humphrey.
Thank you. I was just going to ask the clerk or anyone else that might know, is this at an existing location of another business that I might be familiar with the name of?
Melinda, it's the
trying to think out loud. A couple of these stores are being sold and just rebranded. It's the Sunoco station on State Street. I'm not sure if it was a Jiffy Mart or if it turned into a Jiffy Mart, but the one corporation had it, and then it just recently sold to these folks here. So I'm just getting all that information in line and reissuing the new licenses as stated. But it is an existing business on State Street. It looked like it was corporate. What's Sam say?
That was Granger, Henry.
This one is Granger.
Yes. This was the old Steve Downs' store. It says right on it.
Correct. This one's Granger. The one on State Street also turned over. I think, I'm not sure when we did that one, but that one as well has moved on. Like there's a bunch of these so-called mom and pop stores that are all of a sudden being turned over by either the corporate folks or longtime business owners as far as that goes.
Thanks. So just to follow up, Henry, I do recall that one on State Street a few meetings ago. So the business that's here currently has the same license, correct? We're not giving them anything different than they had previously at that location?
Yeah, the only thing that this location requested was a second class. It's like a package store. It's for them to sell beer and wine as a takeout. So it is the exact same request as far as that goes through the DLC process, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Alderman Humphrey. Are there any other questions or discussion around this? All right. Hearing and seeing nothing, we have a motion that's been seconded to authorize the clerk to sign on behalf of the board for the liquor license for Shami Quick Stop. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, and I'll entertain a motion to go out of the Board of Control Commissioners.
Second. Yes. Second.
Okay. We have a motion, and it has been seconded. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? All right, we are outside of the Board of Control Commissioners, and we are moving on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business to come before the board? Hearing and seeing none, we are on to miscellaneous motions, resolutions, and new business. Up first, we have the Rutland Free Clinic, which was emailed to you today. And I will ask, do we have a representative on the line from the Rutland Free Clinic who would like to speak to this request? I don't believe that we do.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to suspend the rules.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules, and it has been seconded. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
So I guess I'm disappointed to some degree that there's not someone who was able to make the phone call, as I did have a couple of questions. I don't have an objection to placing on the ballot, but I think this board has to take some responsibility to know how they come to the $10,000 request, whether or not they have done previous fundraising. I think it has become all too easy to just go to the taxpayers and go to the tax rate. Are they seeking funds from other towns? This service does not just serve Rutland City residents. So I'm certainly glad to place it on the ballot and let the public make the decision whether or not they fund. But I think our not-for-profits are totaling over $360,000 on the tax rate, which is a huge amount of money. And people have to weigh into that all the time. And they're tremendous organizations who serve our communities wonderfully. But I think they also have a responsibility to explain to us the money, and again, whether or not they fundraise or seek funds from other entities. So with that said, I'll move to place County on the ballot for an amount not to exceed $10,000.
Who seconded? Who seconded, please?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion, and Alderwoman Ryan, I believe, second. All right, so we have a motion that's been seconded to place on the ballot the Rutland County Free Clinic's request for $10,000 to support services provided by the Free Clinic. Is there any discussion or debate? Alderman Group.
I have to agree with Alderman Davis, and maybe someday the board needs to maybe, set up a criteria or something, because, back in the 90s, she was on the board with me, and we had some organizations starting out. Not an offense to this, but when you have executive directors of organizations making six figures coming to you saying, can you make a donation to my organization? And, people like me, I'll show you my W-2. I don't get any bennies or whatever, but I make a nice solid $20,000 a year. And, that's kind of amazing that these outfits are totaling over $300,000 a year on the ballot, and it's a lot of money. And there are a lot of people at home that don't make what I make, and something we ought to look at. I don't know how we do it. As I said, that's why I don't want to even think about putting it in committee, but something we want to look at, because and these guys do a great job, and a lot of our organizations do a wonderful job, but these organizations in the 90s were just starting out and really needed the boost. And now some of them, got some pretty high paid people, and what's 10, 20,000 to that more? And I don't know if I'm crazy or whatever, but it's just I remember some of these outfits starting out. Regional Ambulance was one of them. They were really hurting in 1992 when I got on the board, and they've done well, and they appreciate the city's support and all that, and whatever. It's just something to look at. But these guys, I support them, and I know they do a great thing, and I know a lot of people that volunteer down there and give their time. But city-wise, we need to look into this someday. We need to look in what it was like Sharon's right. They just to request $10,000 just for the heck of it, with no criteria for us to have, or no goalposts for us to set, or whatever is like I said, I think we need to look into it. And I'm not complaining. I'm not beating anybody up. It's just that maybe there's some hoops that need to be jumped through. So that's all I want to say in debate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Garuso. Just so the board is aware, Tia and I were in communication. She wanted to make the meeting this evening. She had to first present at the Killington board meeting. So I'll put a call out there one more time to ask Tia, are you on the line? I don't believe she is. Clerk Heck would like to speak if he could.
Just so the board knows, in regards to the social request, and this is a respectful conversation when I have, the board gets to make a determination of our ballot. There's no question in that emphatically that the board can do as it chooses. Historically in the past, when I served on the board for 3 years and 12 plus years as clerk, I don't ever recall the board approving a request without that entity going out to gather signatures. I know that there were several organizations that contacted me asking to be placed on the ballot. I know COVID specifically kind of changed some of the dynamics of how people were looking at things. It was very specific, stating that candidate positions were basically at this point in time, signatures were not required, but the state statute still required that if things were to be placed on the ballot, they would still need to gather 5% of the registered voters' signatures in order to do so. Again, unless a committee, select board, board of aldermen, however it goes, decided that they wanted to go ahead and grant that as far as it goes. I just looking to make sure that I didn't misguide people in that capacity, because it was something that we had not done in the past. I don't know anything about the Rutland County Free Clinic. good, bad, or indifferent. I'm sure it's a worthy organization, and whatever the board chooses to do, that is completely up to you. The only thing that I am unsure of is that I know there's a statute, according to state statute, that within 47 days of the election, in order to be placed on the warning, that the petition must have been received. So I wasn't sure how the outcome of this was going to be taken tonight, but I will inquire with the Secretary of State first thing in the morning to just make sure that we are not doing something that we can't do. I'm pretty sure the board has the ability to place those things on there. I just want to make sure we have not missed any statute dates by requirement, and I just wanted to make the board aware of that.
Thank you. Alderwoman Davis.
So, Henry, I don't disagree with you, and I guess I felt, and I don't know how the other board members feel, but I guess I felt like there was no opportunity for them to gain signatures. So, you know, do we say, put you on? Do we say you have to wait till next year? You know, I think that's the rock and hard place. It certainly is an organization that does a great deal for our community. But I think that's the problem is I don't know how else to handle it except to put them on and let the voters decide. But if the state says they have to gather signatures, then what is the deadline for this to be on? So if the ballots are created?
So Alderman Davis, it's unfortunate with COVID. We usually receive a map that is presented through the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns. It's a very, very thorough breakdown of elections criteria, dates, deadlines, all that stuff. And for some reason, again, in all the years I've been here, we did not receive one of those, and I'm not sure why. When I go back to previous calendars and I look at a historical perspective, it should have been somewhere around the 15th, 16th, 17th of this month that petition deadline would have come into play as far as that goes. There were a fair amount of inquiries in regards to petitions, people still looking to gather. I mean, I had inquiries just last week about people looking at starting a petition, gathering signatures, and basically I told them, you know what, I think you're already a day late, but I can contact the Secretary of State and make sure for a fact. And it is something that you need more than days or weeks. I mean, if you're going to try and collect upwards of 800 signatures to get the 550 that are necessary, verified, registered voters, then it is something that they usually, you know, work on during the fall time and stuff. Again, you know, when there's parades, there's football games, there's, you know, church functions, there's all sorts of things that are going on. But I know that was the one thing that the state was pretty adamant about. It was one thing that was discussed at length across our MuniNet board, our Clerk and Treasurers Association board that was out there. There's no denying the petitions, the candidates petition. We struck the 35 required signatures, but they were still adamant that anything that was going to be placed on the ballot would need to gather those 5% of the registered voters in order to do so. Unless, again, it came to you folks or any other select board and they decided to waive that. But I don't know when this free clinic request, I believe I spoke with the individual that had requested this. I'm pretty sure it was within the last several weeks. I don't believe it was early summertime or even the fall time as far as that goes. And basically, I stated to them that the petition requirements, but if they wanted to go before the board and speak with them, I think I also may have noted the mayor to send it to him if he wanted it to be forwarded on to the board as well. So one thing that my job requires is the passing of a lot of information as that goes, and unfortunately, there's been an inordinate amount last year or so. So I try to keep it straight, and I want to make sure that I'm guiding everyone equally, that it's black and white, not a lot of gray here.
I appreciate that. I just wish I knew that. It probably, if there was some kind of a cover letter that kind of went with that. So if I may, Mr. Chairman, and I believe it was Alderman Ryan, maybe that seconded, I think. But anyways, I think what I'd like to do is amend my motion to approve placement on the ballot pending the information that the city clerk gathers with the Secretary of State, if this meets the criteria for this year due to COVID.
Excuse me. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, this is Tia Polino. I'm sorry, I'm the executive director of the Free Clinic. I was in another meeting, so I just joined you about less than 10 minutes ago. So I just wanted to let you know that I am on the call, and if you had any questions at this time that I could answer or required any additional information, I'd be happy to do so. And I do want to say I appreciate Mr. Heck's information that he provided me at the time I did call to inquire on the process. And I did, make the decision to just move forward, feeling like perhaps there could be a chance that this could be processed. But I'm happy to provide any additional information that the Board of Aldermen would require.
Thank you. Yes. Prior to answering your questions, Ryan, are you comfortable with the motion as amended, as you were the original seconder?
I'm sorry?
I think we're having an audio blackout here.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that Lisa's quite available. I don't know. She shut her camera off, so I don't know.
Sorry, my internet is not stable right now. Are you looking for a second?
Well, Lisa, I just wanted to tell you that I had amended the motion. I don't know if you got to hear everything that Henry had said about.
Yeah, I heard that.
So I amended my motion. Did you heard that as well? Just depending on what the city clerk and the Secretary of State decide would be the criteria for ballot items this year due to the COVID.
Sure, second.
Excellent, thank you. So we have a motion that's been seconded to accept the request to place this item on the ballot with the contingency that Clerk Heck verifies that we can proceed with doing so. I'll now open it up to anyone who has questions for Tia regarding the request of the Rutland County Free Clinic.
Tia, this is Sharon Davis. I don't really have well, I guess I have a question as to how you will arouse at the $10,000 figure for the city. My other questions were, are you seeking funding from other towns? Do you do fundraising? Because the city of Rutland has a significant amount of money on the tax rate for not-for-profits, all valuable not-for-profits, but it is getting to grow well over the $300,000 mark for impact on the tax rate. So I ask this of every not-for-profit that comes that's new, because I believe it should be a shared expense, and I believe that the not-for-profit should also fundraise for needed and necessary funds before they go to taxpayers. So that was my statement before you arrived.
Oh, of course, and I certainly understand your questions, and we do have fundraising efforts that unfortunately last year were pretty severely impacted by COVID. Our numbers, our service numbers did not decline over the year, even though for 3 months our clinic was unable to have direct access to providers. We did stay open and assisted with over the phone with community partner referrals and insurance assistance. But needless to say, part of the funds that 2 areas actually, our annual appeal was considerably much lower than what we typically would raise. And also our patient donations, even though our services, we never charge our patients for our services, they are free to donate. And again, not having that in-person care for that period of time, and even now having our appointments more limited due to a strict COVID protocol that we have to follow when we do see our patients now, that has significantly, again, impacted that source of income for us. I don't believe we have a history of going to the towns in the county for support. We weren't really sure where we were going to end up toward the end of the year. To be honest, 2020 was a very significant transitional year for the free clinic, even prior to COVID. Losing our prior executive director, Tony Morgan, very suddenly and abruptly, well over the first quarter of the year was just spent in a lot of transition. So, to be honest, we were late. I was late and trying to identify other methods and determining which way we could go. So, and just making phone calls to Rutland City as well as throughout Rutland County and finding out what opportunities we did have for town appropriations or city appropriation that may have waived the petition requirement, and just pursued those to the best of my ability. And we do have a pending request with the town of Killington, Danby, and Pollitt. We are not, of course, requesting as much from those towns. They vary, and Fairhaven. Fairhaven being our largest request outside of Rutland City of $2,000, and then the others are $500 and $1,000. And those I derived those numbers really based on, I did do some homework and seeing where funds were being appropriated at this time, and to get an idea of that funds, and also to see, how many individuals we are serving in that area. And as I put in my letter, we typically see about half of the patients we see are from Rutland City. I did verify some numbers this afternoon, and last year we had 509 patients that received direct care from our healthcare providers, and 241 of those came from Rutland City. So, I would like to offer a more specific formula for calculating my request. However, it was really just based on, again, the percentage of our patient population, where they're coming from, and then looking at other appropriations, and kind of determining that as, but certainly at this point in time, we were very fortunate in 2020 that we received some grant funds from Direct Relief. We are members of Direct Relief and AmeriCares that help us out greatly with our medical supplies and needs. And Vermont Community Foundation, through the COVID relief funds that they had received, were very helpful for us. And we were able to get ourselves through this year, or through 2020. However, we don't, like many, or perhaps even all of us, we don't know what this year is going to bring, but we're already seeing, a deficit in our proposed budget that we just, we're going to continue to work on and increase our fundraising efforts, reach out to more corporate relationships and building relationships with our larger employers and corporations in the area, and So we certainly, we don't appreciate being a burden. That's for sure. But we do appreciate any consideration that the city may be able to give us. And I'm sorry for the lengthy, long-winded, but I hope I did touch on the areas that you were interested in.
Yes, very much. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you all for yours.
Thank you, Tia. Are there any other questions of Tia while we have her? If not, we have a motion, it's been seconded, to accept the amount of $10,000 to support services provided by the Rutland Free Clinic to be placed on the ballot on the March 2nd election, pending verification by Clerk Heck that that is acceptable. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tia, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right. We are now on to, or we're still under miscellaneous motions, resolutions, and new business. We have up next Alderwoman Humphrey, resolution of City of Rutland Board of Aldermen support for Vermont public officials' condemnation of acts at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2020. These are pages 8 and 9 of your packet. Alderwoman Humphrey.
Thanks. I would like to move to suspend the rules and take the issue up tonight, please.
Second.
We have a motion and it has been seconded. Would all those in favor of suspending the rules please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Alderwoman Humphrey.
Okay, it would now be the appropriate time to go ahead and read the resolution and that. Also, could I clarify first? Thanks. Could I clarify first, is Alderman Gillum still present at the meeting? Does anyone know?
It's there.
All I know was he's in Waterbury and he's having trouble trying to connect, and that was trying to connect with his phone. I saw him here for a while, but now I don't.
Alderwoman Humphrey, I'm looking. I do not see him. I do see something that says waiting for name, which tends to indicate someone's signing in.
All right.
But I do not see him. And Alderman Gillum, you're not on a phone with a corresponding number, correct?
Okay.
Hearing nothing. Go ahead.
I'll move ahead. Thank you. Resolving the City of Rutland Board of Aldermen support for Vermont public officials' condemnation of the violent acts of insurrection and terror at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Whereas on January 6, 2021, a violent mob descended on the U.S. Capitol building, and whereas, having been encouraged by, among others, the sitting President of the United States of America, they broke through barricades, doors, and security checkpoints to illegally occupy the Capitol. And whereas these actions were intended to disrupt, suspend, and nullify the legal ratification of the 2020 presidential election through the most undemocratic and contemptible means. And whereas, in but one of many acts of domestic terror that day, an officer of the law, a decorated combat veteran, was beaten to death while he endeavored to protect the building, our democratic process, and individual legislators who are meant to be our national barrier against fascism, tyranny, and anarchy. And whereas a bipartisan group of both Rutland County and statewide elected officials have quickly and without question condemned the violent actions of these extremists. And whereas Senator Patrick Leahy stated January 6th was a day of infamy for our democracy, and President Trump remains an ongoing and immediate threat to our constitutional republic. And whereas Senator Bernie Sanders stated the man directly responsible for the chaos is Donald Trump, who has made it clear that he will do anything to remain in power, including insurrection and inciting violence. And whereas Congressman Peter Welch stated it was a day that no American could have imagined when the U.S. Capitol was besieged, attacked, and ransacked by an angry mob, whose goal was overturning the election. And whereas Governor Phil Scott stated, make no mistake, the President of the United States is responsible for this event. President Trump has orchestrated a campaign to cause an insurrection that overturns the results of a free, fair, and legal election. And there is no doubt that the president's delusion, fabrication, self-interest, and ego have led us step by step to this very low and very dangerous moment in American history. And whereas Republican Vermont House Minority Leader Patty McCoy called today's event abhorrent and disgraceful, and said those in Washington have a responsibility to rein in the recklessness that has been promoted, incited, and encouraged from among the most important offices in the nation. And whereas the House of Representatives on January 13, 2021, impeached President Trump through a bipartisan vote with support from 10 Republicans, including the number 3 House Republican Liz Cheney, for incitement of insurrection, making him the first United States president to be impeached twice. And whereas the city of Rutland recognizes that our republic, our values, and our democratic ideals were defiled by these illegal, immoral, and insidious acts of sedition. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the city of Rutland unconditionally supports our fellow elected officials as they condemn these reprehensible and un-American actions. We join them to place culpability for the wanton death and destruction at our national capital at the feet of the sitting president of the United States. I therefore move to authorize the Rutland City Board of Aldermen to sign the resolution as presented. Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, and it has been seconded to move this resolution to the full Board of Aldermen. Alderman DePoy.
Mr. President, I would like to present a strike all amendment to the resolution as presented. I have emailed copies of this to Clerk Heck, which is forwarded on to all of you. And if I may, I'd like to read that into the record.
Go ahead, Alderman DePoy. And just so everyone knows, you would have gotten this resolution that he's speaking of at about 15 minutes prior to the meeting. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. So again, my resolution is a strike all to what's been presented, and it reads as follows. Whereas on May 26, 2020, violent protests broke out in Minneapolis after the police beating death of George Floyd. And whereas during the ensuing months, nearly every major city in the United States saw protests, some of which became violent. And whereas in but one of many acts of domestic terror over the summer and fall months, those associated with the riots shot and killed David Dorn, a 77-year-old retired police captain. And whereas rioters have injured many police officers and 2 police officers have lost their lives while trying to keep the peace. And whereas many arrests have been made of violent protesters for offenses such as assault, vandalism, arson, and murder. And whereas the violence of the summer gave way to cooler weather and the November 3rd election. And whereas Joseph Biden was duly elected as the 46th President of the United States of America. And whereas on January 6th, as the United States Congress was working on certifying the election of November 3rd, an angry group of protesters descended on the U.S. Capitol. And whereas this group's actions were intended to disrupt, suspend, and nullify the ratification of the November 3rd presidential election. And whereas the protesters quickly turned into a mob and criminally breached the U.S. Capitol. And whereas rioters overtook the House and Senate chambers, causing the nation's elected representatives and senators to flee to safety while trying to conduct the nation's business. And whereas the violence inside the Capitol caused the deaths of 5 people, including an officer of the law who was a decorated combat veteran, while he endeavored to protect the very building where our democratic process is supposed to occur. And whereas a bipartisan group of both Rutland County and state of Vermont elected officials quickly and resoundingly condemned the actions at the U.S. Capitol. And whereas this Board of Aldermen of the City of Rutland recognizes that our republic, our values, and our democratic ideals will forever be stained by these illegal, immoral, and insidious acts of sedition. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Rutland City Board of Aldermen thoroughly condemns the violence that occurred around our nation in 2020 and at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, 2021, the responsibility for which belongs to the rioters as well as those who may have incited them. And be it further resolved, the City of Rutland's Board of Aldermen, that we support our fellow elected officials in Washington, D.C., and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Governor, Phil Scott, our 2 U.S. Senators, Patrick Leahy and Bernie Sanders, and our U.S. House member, Peter Welch. Signed this day of January by the City Board of Aldermen, and I so move.
I'll second.
All right, so we have an amendment, or a strike all amendment to the original motion, and it has been seconded.
Second, please.
Alderman Clifford seconded.
Okay, thank you.
So I will open this up to debate. I'll start first with members. Alderwoman Humphrey.
Thank you. I will be voting against Alderman DeFoy's amendment. Just make a comment, if I may, that if we're unable to distinguish the difference between millions of people peacefully protesting centuries of oppression and systemic racism from a riot by domestic terrorists violently conspiring because they feel like the election was stolen from them and they're having their privileges taken away, I can't legitimize that with an argument. So that's all I have, and I will be voting against that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Humphrey. Alderman Ettore.
Thank you. Similar to Alderwoman Humphrey, that is just, it's a false equivalency. It's not appropriate. I will not argue it. I'll vote no.
Alderman Talbot.
So the amended resolution is predicated on a logical fallacy, whataboutism. So rather than examining the merits of the original resolution, it attempts to draw attention elsewhere and to undermine the credibility of the author. So I'll be voting no.
Alderwoman Davis.
I just have a question. I know that the origin of Alderman DeFoy's, so Alderman Humphrey, this was, just so I understand, this was just something that you felt that you wanted to put together and put before the board. It was not a request that came from our delegation, Montpelier, et cetera.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to that, Sharon. No, it was not a request that came from our delegation. I felt like if we as individuals felt it appropriate to make statements regarding these actions on other platforms in our social circles and whatnot, that we recognize the importance of using a platform we have available to us as a privilege as members of the Board of Aldermen and as a board to make this statement at using our platform here on the Board of Aldermen. And
how would the public speak from outside?
Alderwoman Humphrey.
could I call the question, please?
Yes, you certainly can. Alderwoman Humphrey has called the question. Do we have a second? We have a second. Alderman Talbot.
Thank you.
So Alderwoman Humphrey has called the question. Alderman Talbot has seconded. All those in favor of calling the question, which will mean we will vote on
Mr.
this
President,
sheet.
point of order.
Alderman DeFoy.
Is this a debatable question?
I believe not, but Attorney Bloomer, I'll defer to you.
No, it's not. And it requires a 2/3 vote.
Thank you for the clarification, Attorney Bloomer. So Alderwoman Humphrey has called the question. It has been seconded by Alderman Talbot. As pointed out, it requires 2/3 vote to end debate and then to immediately proceed to vote on the amendment, the strike all amendment as offered by Alderman DePoy. All those in favor of calling the question?
Roll call, please.
Very good. Alderman DePoy has requested a roll call. All right, and I will turn it over to Clerk Heck to call roll on the question of calling the question.
Alderman Garuso. Where did Sam go? Alderwoman Humphrey.
Yes.
Alderman Torrey. Alderman Torrey.
Oh, sorry, I was waiting for Lisa first. Yes.
Sorry. It's been a while since I've done this, and I don't have my papers in front of me here. Alderwoman Ryan.
Yes.
We're on to Alderman Talbot.
Yes.
Alderwoman Mattis.
No.
Alderman Gillum. No response from Alderman Gillum. Alderman Clifford.
No.
Alderman DePoy.
No.
Alderwoman Davis.
No.
So, Mr. Chair, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, and 2 no answers.
All right. Due to failure to reach 2/3 majority, the question is not called. So this is still on the floor for debate. The amendment, that is, the strike all amendment. Alderwoman Mattis.
Thank you, Mr. President. By the way, the reason I voted no to call the question was that I had something to say. I just want to address my remarks to the motion for the amendment. I'll address other remarks after this. So, we all love democracy, and we had better cherish democracy. And one of the reason that the events of January 6th were so incredibly upsetting is because they were an attack on democracy. And so I am resolved in my own life to do absolutely everything I can to support democratic ideals. These ideals include civil debate of the type we're having now, access to the democratic process, due process of law, etc. One of the important and perhaps forgotten components of the best kind of debate is the idea of charity. In the concept of charity in debate means that you give the best interpretation of your opponent's views and consider them along those lines. And so with that in mind, I would like to give a slightly different interpretation of Alderman DePoy's proposed resolution than I've heard. And that is that I believe Alderman DePoy very clearly denounced the insurrectionist mob at the Capitol in no uncertain terms. And furthermore, that he is attempting to place that violence in context of a year that had plenty of other violence in it. And while the argument that that's a false equivalency is well founded, he is not wrong to place the attitude of those rioters in that context. For example, one of the rioters, I watched a 30-minute video of one of the insurrectionists, and it was quite remarkable, to say the least. And he was walking through the Capitol building, and they were talking about statues and saying, hey, you know, don't hurt the statues, basically. And he said, oh, we're not going to hurt the statues. But he's, you know, looking around, and he goes, but we might just burn it all down, just saying. And so he, you know, that man himself was referring to a year with quite a lot of violence in it, even though that violence was perpetrated by a very small minority of those who were protesting. I just don't believe that Alderman DePoy is wrong in making that point. That point is not as weighty for me as the point that simply denounces the attack on democracy that we saw on January 6th. I think it's true that, well, let me just say that to place the events of January 6th in the context of an attack on democracy and an attack by public officials, you know, questioning the results of a free and fair election, I have only this to say, that we can have a democratic nation that experiences terrible violence, but we cannot have the nation that we love without democracy. And so I want this resolution to be squarely about democracy. And that is why I am going to vote against the amendment, but I at least wanted to acknowledge what I believe are the facts and what I believe are the best intentions of all of my fellow aldermen. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Alderwoman Mattis. Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was glad to hear some of the comments that Alderman Mattis shared. And I believe that most of us, or all of us sitting here in our community as well, share the concern that we all witnessed that day. I also don't feel that Alderman DePoy was trying to be disrespectful. There were a lot of messages sent when there were riots and businesses and other things being destroyed. And it's not something that we all agreed with. As far, we knew the cause, we knew the reason, and we understood the frustration, but we certainly don't agree. I would assume, at least I'll speak for myself, I don't agree with businesses being destroyed. People were not involved in decision makings of whether people were prosecuted or not prosecuted, lost their business, lost their livelihoods, and some lost their lives. And I don't think we agree with that either. And I think I can't speak for Alderman DePoy, he'll speak for himself. But I think that's kind of the statement he was putting out there. I agree, democracy is the most important thing that we have in this country. Freedom of speech is one of them. So, we talk about democracy, we talk about bias, we talk about open minds, but we forget to share that with each one of us. So I think it's become an issue. I'll speak to it clearly with this board of disrespect. And I think there's an opportunity here. Maybe it's not Alderman DePoy's resolution. Maybe it's not Alderman Humphrey's resolution. But I think there's an opportunity that this board just says we denounce the actions of violence and attack on our democracy. But I think we have to do it with some sort of respect for each other.
Thank you, Alderman Davis. Is there any other board members who would like to speak to the amendment as presented? Alderman DePoy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just, when I first read the resolution that was presented by Alderman Humphrey, I just felt that it was extremely inflammatory, extremely controversial, and couldn't have divided this board and this city more. That said, what I attempted to do here by presenting a strike all amendment was, in fact, echo some of her points here, as I actually took some of what she said almost word for word to put into this amended version, such as rioters overtaking the House and Senate chamber, such as the Board of Aldermen recognizing that our republic, our values, etc., will be forever stained. There's several other things that I used in my amended version that come directly from the thoughts that Alderman Humphrey had. However, I do not feel that I could support her version without at least showing the same contempt and outrage over the violent riots that did occur over the summer. There's no doubt about it. They were not peaceful protests in totality. Yes, there definitely were many peaceful protesters out there whom everyone on this board has said, they have every right to, and I support their right, even if I don't agree with their premise. That said, there were many, many peaceful protesters also on January 6th of 2021. They are not the ones that should be forever stained by the, people that went down to the Capitol and acted so hideously. There's no doubt about that either. None. I just feel that, we are not in a position to be a judge, jury, and executioner of the President of the United States here, because some people feel that he's the one that incited the riot at the Capitol. That's not for us to decide in a resolution here tonight. That's for a court of law or for a trial in the Senate for impeachment. And for us to just blatantly say he's the one responsible, I think is negligent at best, and I could support something like that. So, my attempt here was to put together something that all 11 members of this board can support, and there's nothing that I have said here that is false. Everything that I have here I can support documentation from multiple sources. And with that, I yield back. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Alderman DePoy. Alderwoman Humphrey.
Thank you. So I have a question. First, our documents are not the same, Tom. The reason I cannot support your amendment because yours does not once mention President Trump. And so my question is and I strongly believe that we're not able to work the solution if we're willfully ignorant about naming the problem. And so my question is the amendment to, I believe you use strike all, or is the amendment, is the motion to strike all and replace with yours? Are we voting on striking mine completely or striking and replacing is my question.
Mr. President, may my motion is to strike all of the presented and amend it with what I have presented. So it's a strike all and replace, yes.
Alderman Garuso, I believe I saw your hand.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want you to know that I shut off my camera and volume and went and used the restroom, got the mail, checked on my wife who's cooking dinner. Was so happy to see Mayor Loris here. Hello, Mayor Loris. I was glad to, he probably has his volume off. He's not smiling. Shutting off the computer was kind of like what I do with the TV, having been in broadcasting for many years and then in the print business. I know that I can read what I want to read or watch what I want to watch. It's a sad world we're living in. There's a lot of bad stuff that we see, a lot of stuff that we're force fed, a lot of stuff that can tend to be slanted. I believe these resolutions are not firsthand. I'm sorry. In my business, you write where you source them from. If Wolf Blitzer reported them to you, or you know, Chris, what's his name there, the governor's brother, maybe reported them to you in CNN, but no one saw it firsthand, and that's just my opinion. If I saw those or whatever, yes, they happened. Sure, they happened. We saw them, but we also saw them through someone else's lens, someone else's writing. But I'm sick of it, and most of the people I meet are sick of it. I voted for President Trump, and I got to tell you something. I was very disappointed in him, and most people that I know that were supporters of his are very disgusted with him. But the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, I came back to my computer, and other than seeing the handsome Mayor Loris, I thought we were creating jobs or lowering taxes, and that's what I really would rather spend my time doing. This is a waste of my time, and that's all I have to say.
Any other discussion or debate on the strike all amendment?
So if I may, I think it's been clear how Alderman DePoy feels and why he feels the way he does, and Alderman Humphrey and why she feels the way she does. Is there, if the board feels like it wants to sign on to a resolution, is there an opportunity for common ground, for a mixture of, for more work on the resolution, or is it mine over DePoy's and move on?
Thank you, Alderman Davis. I think we still need to take up the amendment as presented first. Is there any further discussion or debate on the amendment, the strike all amendment as presented? If not, then we have a motion and it has been seconded to strike all and amend with the language offered by Alderman DePoy. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Are you taking any comment from outside?
Roll call, please.
Sure, yes. If there are people outside the rail who would like to speak to this issue, I will gladly take that right now.
My hand's up if you're doing it that way, like the old days.
Mr. Loris, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that you guys don't know who I am or what I've done. So I just want to cut right to the chase and speak to what's been said. Mr. President, it's in spite of what Alderman Davis said, it is clear to any rational human being that this amendment was in fact meant to be nothing more than disrespectful to the original motion. You folks have a meeting tonight, Tuesday night, Mr. President. You didn't have it Monday night because it was Martin Luther King Day. And clearly, the lessons of Dr. King were not taken seriously by some members of this board to put together and put an amendment which is clearly disrespectful and based in racism is unconscionable on the day after Martin Luther King Day. It was inflammatory. It is controversial. And I'll wait to speak to the original motion at that time, but right now I'm speaking to the amendment that it would be a sign of weakness and lack of courage by this board to support the amendment. I'm seeing American flags, whether on lapels or behind people. I've asked this board before and in different circumstances to raise your hands if you ever served your country, put your life on the line for the Constitution of the United States and our way of government. And I have not once seen anyone I served with on the board or served with while I was mayor be able to raise that hand. So the chicken hawks that continue to wrap themselves in the flag and say this type of incendiary things on the day after Martin Luther King Day, when just a week ago, there was an armed insurrection at the United States Capitol. And Alderman Torrey, Mr. President, is absolutely right that this is a false equivalence. And I give you time now to listen to other people outside the rail and vote your consciences.
Thank you, Mr. Loris. Are there other members outside the rail who wish to speak to this amendment as has been presented? All right, hearing none. We have a motion that has been seconded to strike the original language and replace it with the language as amended by Alderman DePoy. He has requested a roll call vote.
I didn't hear the amendment, by the way. I was stirring the sauce there. Could you repeat the amendment, Mr. Chairman?
I would request that Alderman DePoy reread the resolution. I don't know it.
Oh, the whole resolution, then I've got you. I didn't know if there's something made. I got it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to take a point of privilege. And I think I'm assuming that Mr. Loris is still present. I did not say that I felt that the resolution was disrespectful. I said sometimes the way that we have discussions is disrespectful. And I will agree that I have never served in the armed forces, but my husband is a Vietnam veteran. And my father was in World War II, and I outlasted an uncle on World War II. So I may not have myself served, but people that I love certainly have. So I know what it's like to love this country. I don't need to serve it in that session to know that.
Alderman DePoy, I did see your hand.
Yes, thank you. Mr. President, I may not have served in a military armed forces of any kind. And, frankly, it's debatable in my own head whether I could have, should have, or would have back in 1988 when I graduated from high school. But I was the path to go to college, and that's what I did. So why I didn't serve in the States Army, Marine, Navy, other armed forces. I have, however, served the city with pride for 23 years, both here at the and at the state level. Okay, so me that I haven't served people of this city for, okay, I hang a flag very proudly every day at my house. And this attempt here, this amendment, is not in any way, shape, or form trying to do away with the thought process of Alderman Humphrey. The problem I see with it is that it is incredibly divisive, as is shown here tonight. And I have attempted to put together something that is not divisive to this city, which for the last 4 years, since 2016, it seems as though some people, that's all they've tried to do is divide this board, and those who think one way oppose those who think another way. This was an attempt to bring together some of the thoughts of Alderman Humphrey and some of the thoughts of Alderman DePoy and frankly others, okay? As stated, and I never said it was an identical to Alderman Humphrey's. I said some of the lines come right from Alderman Humphrey's resolution that she has presented. Not all of them, of course, because I wouldn't support that. Obviously, what I've presented is not supportable by Alderman Humphrey or others. It was an attempt anyway. It was an attempt not to divide this city, this board, others further, as has been the case since 2016. Prior to that, I thought that the board, as constructed at the time, many of the members which are here tonight were on, and at the time, supported him almost thoroughly through 2016, until something was done that divided this community to the core. So when I put together stuff like this, it's to try to unite. And if it's a poor attempt, then it's a poor attempt. But at least it's an attempt to unite, not divide. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Alderman DePoy. Alderman Talbot.
Yeah, I'd like to disagree. Comparing 400 years of the indiscriminate killing of Black people by those who wield power in this country, protesting that and comparing that to a group of people who didn't win a free and fair election and attempted to break into a secure capital and potentially kidnap people or kill people, that is incredibly divisive.
Thank you, Alderman Talbot. Are there other people who wish to speak to this? If not, we have a motion and it has been seconded to strike the original language of the resolution and replace it with the that has been submitted by Alderman DePoy. Hearing no further discussion or debate, we will take the vote now, and there was a roll call requested. I will turn it over to Clerk Hecht to go through the roll call.
Alderman Garuso. Stirring the sauce. Alderwoman Humphrey.
No.
Alderwoman Ryan.
No.
Alderman Attore.
No.
Alderman Talbot.
No.
Alderwoman Mattis.
No.
Alderman Gillum. Still not logged in. Alderman Clifford.
Yes.
Alderman DePoy. Alderman DePoy.
Sorry, mute. Yes.
Thank you. Alderman Davis.
No.
So as it stands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like we have 6 no, 2 yes, and 2 not answered.
6 no, 2 yes, 2 absent. Amendment fails due to lack of ability to achieve the majority of 6 required votes. So we return now to the original resolution as moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate on the original resolution as presented? Is there, Alderwoman Mattis?
Thank you. So I've thought very, very, very long and hard about Alderwoman Humphrey's resolution. First of all, I think that it is true, and truth is very important to me. However, I want more from a resolution than mere truth. I want it to promote the interests of the city of Rutland. I absolutely appreciate the desire for us to use our privileged position to make a principled statement in favor of democracy and denouncing anti-democracy. And I would do that if I felt that that statement truly represented something like a general consensus of the board. But clearly the way that Alderwoman Humphrey crafted it did not, and we can see that. But again, are we promoting the interests of the city of Rutland? I am not sure that we are. I think this was a good debate. I'm grateful that we had it. I'm grateful that I was able to take part in it. I honor everyone who spoke. And as much as I believe in the content of the resolution that's at hand, and as much as I would like to take advantage of my privileged position here as an elected official to make a public statement by voting yes on the resolution, because it doesn't seem to represent a general consensus of the board, I cannot honestly say that it does. I can't honestly sign a resolution that says, therefore, we, the city of Rutland. Again, I'm not clear how this promotes the city's interests, given that it has given rise to a fair amount of debate. I would love to see a resolution that very strongly supported the principles of democracy and denounced anti-democratic violence. But I would want that to be representative of a general consensus of the whole board, which I believe that we have, but I'm not certain, or in fact, I'm pretty sure that this document is not that. So despite my support for the statement, my 100% support, I am going to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Mattis. Is there any further discussion or debate from members of the board on this? Alderwoman Ryan.
President Whitcomb, I would like to ask Alderwoman Mattis how she envisions getting every citizen's point of view on this resolution. So that it fits the box for everybody, because this is now almost 2 weeks after this incident and we want to wait on it. That's a disgrace. It is, Sharon.
Alderwoman Mattis.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify my meaning. I wasn't hoping to represent the ideas of the entire city of Rutland. I merely was wanting to come to a general consensus of the opinions of the board as elected officials in the city. So what I perhaps would do is, ask
Mr. President,
individual.
point of order.
Hey, can I finish?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a point of order against you, Rebecca. I have a point of order, Mr. President, if I may. And unless Alderwoman Mattis is presenting an amendment or some other form of voting for this resolution or whatever is offered, another member cannot unwillingly interrogate another member of the board that's not offering something. Now, Alderman Mattis is certainly welcome to speak to it if she so chooses, but she is not required to be interrogated because she has not presented anything on in the form of an amendment or anything else. That's my point of order.
I asked a question. Was an interrogation, for God's sakes.
To the entire board, please direct all questions and statements to the chair.
President Whitcomb, it was not an interrogation. It was a question of Alderwoman Mattis.
Certainly understood, Alderwoman Ryan. Just for the sake of following Robert's Rules of Order, I'll ask everyone to refrain from referring to any of their fellow men and just refer questions directly to me. And of course, Alderwoman Mattis is free to answer or not answer.
I was pretty much done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do have a concern that I would like to share.
Yes.
We sit here and identify ourselves and speak openly and freely, whether we agree or disagree. We have someone who is signed in as Ruth Bader Ginsburg that needs to identify themselves or leave this meeting.
So Alderwoman Davis is referring to a member of the chat who is signed in as Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You are free to address the board on this issue as it is on the agenda if you'd like. Given the nature of this, I don't know that I can, nor will I, kick you out of the meeting, but I do see that you have comments to offer. I would invite you to please speak to the board if you still like.
I would invite them to please identify themselves as we always do. I don't believe a Ruth Bader Ginsburg is the correct name.
Point of order, Mr. President. And this is a really sincere question. I don't think that members of the public are required to identify themselves if they're not going to speak. Anyone from the public can come into the chambers and just sit there. So isn't that the same thing? I know people need to identify themselves if they're going to speak. I'm just not clear if that person was going to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Mattis.
I believe
Yes.
There's an active chat that's happening. If you look at the chat board.
All right, I'll take a moment to address the board. Yes, clearly when someone speaks outside the rail, we do invite them to please identify themselves, where they live. Unfortunately, due to the nature of what we have to do through this pandemic, it is impossible to get someone to necessarily state who they are or sign in under the person that they are. I also cannot police the chat room. I do my best, but unfortunately, people are free to say what they wish. Someone is also free to show up in person to a Board of Aldermen meeting and pretend to be whoever they please. So this person, unless they choose to disrupt in verbally as I see here, I would ask that they please, as opposed to speaking in the chat, please address the board and identify themselves if they do wish to speak to us. Otherwise, I respectfully request to please stop entering comments into the chat as it is disruptive, and we do have an item on the agenda in front of us right now, as well as an executive session still. Thank you. So for the final time, the person who is signed in under Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you are very welcome to address us on this issue if you would so like. If not, I just respectfully request that you please stop typing into the chat. Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor and it has been seconded. Alderman Attore.
Thank you. I will be supporting this resolution. I share the concerns that Alderwoman Mattis has made about it not being reflective of the entire board or consensus of the entire board. I think, unfortunately, you know, that isn't going to be possible, right? Other than a statement of, we don't like violence. That's not sufficient in this case. You know, the insurrection that happened at the Capitol is not the same as any of the other events. I think, you know, those of us who were on the board or who participated in the numerous committee meetings back in 2016 understand the critical importance of feeling safe as we do the business of governing. Never mind, you know, what was actually happening that day at the Capitol. A resolution of this board, a resolution of this city, should say very clearly that that particular act, standalone, is not okay. And this resolution says it in terms of what everybody else has said, right? It is supportive of all of the comments of our elected officials and the facts that President Trump was impeached. It's not going out on a limb. I would agree with you that there may have been some words that might have been more incendiary than necessary, but those have been changed. And I think it is a very strong statement that we really should all be behind. There's not one thing in there that should be that inflammatory based on the facts as we know it. And so I would encourage us to support it, you know, to make a statement that on behalf of the city, that we support the elected officials who have condemned the violence and placed the blame on Donald Trump. That seems appropriate. It doesn't seem too far of a step, and it seems like it's the right consensus, you know, versus a watered down consensus that doesn't really say very much at all. So I'm supportive of this, and I encourage all of us to vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Attore. Are there other questions, discussion, debate on this resolution? Alderman Clifford.
So we're voting on Alderwoman Humphrey's motion, correct?
Yes, so that's correct. The motion is her resolution so moved that we as a board would sign on to that.
Mr. Chairman, was there a roll call vote? I know
it has not yet been requested. Alderwoman Humphrey?
I'd like to request a roll call vote, please.
All right. So we have a motion. It has been seconded to support the resolution as presented by Alderwoman Humphrey, and that we would all sign on as a board. A roll call has been requested. Is there any further discussion or debate on this issue? Hearing and seeing none, I will hand it over to Clerk Heck to take the vote.
Alderman Garuso. Alderwoman Humphrey.
Yes.
Alderwoman Ryan.
Yes.
Alderman Attore.
Yes.
Alderman Talbot,
Yes.
Alderwoman Mattis,
No.
Alderman Gillum, Alderman Clifford,
No.
Alderman DePoy,
No.
Alderwoman Davis,
No.
4-4 with 2 no votes. Motion fails.
Motion fails 4-4 with 2 people absent.
We're on to executive session.
Motion to go into executive session with the following from the city attorney with the proper wording, please.
Just very quickly, prior to going into executive session, is there any other miscellaneous motions, resolutions, or new business? Hearing none, Attorney Bloomer, would you please provide the language for executive session?
Sure. The motion would be to find that premature general public knowledge regarding probable litigation to which the city would be a party would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage because the discussion will divulge the city's strategy in such probable litigation and will include confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the city.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion. It's been seconded. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Attorney Bloomer?
And then a motion to enter into executive session with the inclusion of the city attorney, interim commissioner of public works, the treasurer, and the mayor to discuss probable litigation as allowed under Title I, Section 313A1E and Title I, Section 313A1F.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and it has been seconded. Would all those in favor please indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
All right. So Attorney Bloomer, we will take the language from you if we could.
Sure. So it would be an authorization for the mayor to sign the agreement with the Belden Company, Inc. in substantially the form presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And those opposed? Motion carries. Have a good night, everyone.